welcome to the Virtual Forum on Visions of a Sustainable Future. Thank you, participants, for taking the time out to be here with us. I'm Dr. Vesna Lautiger, a policy researcher at IGES, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, and I will be moderating this event. For those who do not know IGES yet, IGES is a Japanese research institute where we develop policies and perform research focused on 4 areas: decarbonization, resource circulation, SDG implementation, and preserving our valuable ecosystems. And that with a final aim to co-create sustainable civilization. And this is also the aim of today's forum. I'm honored that soon we will be hearing from and talking to very distinguished guests who are developing, bolstering, and expanding visions and methods to make sustainability a reality. We will hear about super smart societies based on artificial intelligence, big data, IoT, and robotics that will help us achieve sustainable goals. We will also hear about circular economy, without which sustainability simply cannot be achieved. Then we will talk about Ecocivilization, an all-encompassing vision calling us to become more connected to ourselves and to the living world around us. Lastly, we will hear about local circulating and ecological sphere, an approach that strengthens communities, makes them self-reliant and resilient. So, we have a very exciting time ahead of us. This event was organized by IGES as well as the Embassy of the Republic of Slovenia in Tokyo and Delegation of the European Union to Japan. And now I would like to invite the ambassadors for introductory remarks, starting with the Ambassador of the Republic of Slovenia in Tokyo, Her Excellency Dr. Ana Pulak-Petric, and followed by Her Excellency Dr. Patricia Flor, the Ambassador of the European Union to Japan. Your Excellencies, please.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to sincerely thank IGES and EU delegation in Tokyo for cooperation in the organization of this event. I'm also grateful to the eminent speakers for their participation and taking their time to join us. The former European Commission from Slovenia, Mrs. Bulc, the Vice Minister of Japanese government, Mr. Akaishi, the President of Japanese government, the President of the IGES, Mr. Takeuchi, and the Head of Unit from EU Commission, Mr. Missiga. The speakers today are going to present to us their visions of the future of humankind. They're going to answer some very important questions: how we should live in the future, how we should act towards environment, how we should use the benefits of the evolving technology, and also how we should treat each other in person-to-person relations. Some who will listen to today's event might say this is a very futuristic, this is a very idealistic, maybe even philosophical discussion. It is not concrete enough. I, of course, do not agree with this. It has always been that great human developments in history came from idealistic visionaries. It is all of these topics which we're going to talk about today relate to all of us, to everyday's lives. And what is even more important is the time in which we're discussing these issues. The COVID pandemic revealed how vulnerable we are, how interconnected the world is, and how hopeless we humans are if we do not have the right tools to fight unpredictable tragedies. However, there are very predictable catastrophes which we might face in our future if we do not act immediately. Pollution, inadequate water supplies, demographic problems, losing human-to-human relations, just to name a few of them. There is no doubt that we can preserve the earth for future generations only by enhancing sustainability in all spheres of our daily lives. That's why I hope that today's discussion with our panelists and, of course, the audience which is listening to us will be able to give us some answers to these questions And I hope that we will achieve three goals. Firstly, that we will try to raise awareness among people in Japan and overseas on the importance of addressing these issues, such as climate change, sustainability, circular economy, technological advancement for our daily lives, and especially for the lives of the future generations. Secondly, we will put on the table four distinguished visions of the future, which can be, of course, translated in very concrete actions with concrete outcomes, giving opportunity for activities to politicians, business community, research academia, and others. And thirdly, I think we were underlined that the problems which we will be addressing today are without borders. No state alone can solve them. We are all interconnected and depending in finding solutions. Thus, there is an urgent need for our cooperation. Slovenia, as a member of the European Union, is fully aware of this fact. We are already participating in the discussions and are actively supporting the European Green Deal and Circular Economy Action Plan. Slovenia will continue to work together with our partners on these topics, also during our EU presidency, which will be coming in the second half of the 2021. We are also engaged with Japan on concrete projects in implementation of Society 5.0 in Slovenia, and also together with the NEDO agency, we are building smart grid networks around Slovenian landscape. Slovenian business and research communities are ready for further cooperation also with our partners in the future. With this in mind, the Slovenian embassy in Tokyo has decided to co-organize this important event, and I just hope that many more will follow also in the future, because the topics which we will discuss today will definitely stay with us for a very long time. I wish all of you to enjoy this interesting discussion, and I hope that we will find at least some answers to the questions which will be put on the table by today's panelists. Thank you very much.
Well, dear Ambassador Polak-Petric, dear Vice Minister Mr. Akaishi, former Commissioner Mrs. Bulc, dear Professor Takeuchi, dear Mr. Missiga, colleagues and esteemed guests connected remotely. On behalf of the European Union, I wish to extend to you all a very friendly welcome to this virtual forum, which we jointly organized with the Embassy of the Republic of Slovenia to Japan and the Institute for Global Environmental Studies. Today's discussion will center on possible visions for a sustainable future. Ever since the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we know that the transition to a sustainable, inclusive, and climate-neutral future represents the task at hand for this generation, our generation of policymakers, of stakeholders, of researchers, of businesses, of society as a whole. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us how much our societies depend for their growth, their well-being, and their stability on functioning ecosystems around us. It has reminded us that we need to reconsider how we use natural resources for our growth, moving away from unsustainable linear models, and that we need to seriously heed the warnings of global warming. And while our government adopts extraordinary measures to tackle the economic and social challenges caused by the pandemic, let us not lose sight of the fact that plans to come out of the crisis have to take into account the renewed awareness that they have to be future-proof. So we have to be green rather than simply falling back on old patterns. As European Union and all of our member states, we have embraced the challenge by putting at the center of our recovery strategy from the pandemic the European Green Deal. The European Green Deal is both about building a climate-neutral economy by 2050, and it is about implementing a digital agenda that will harness the power of digital technologies to make the technological, economic, and social transformation possible. A huge shift will be required, both in the way we consume, in the way we produce, in the way we power our homes and our industries, in the way we move. And this shift will require action across all sectors of the economy and of our private lives, from energy to construction, from mobility to agriculture. And this will be at the heart of the transformation of industrial processes. The EU is ready to invest in the future, in this sustainable future. But to do so, it firmly counts on the involvement and the commitment not only of all European actors, from business and from investors to local governments and to academia, but also to our international partners. The organized and active participation of civil society and citizens' own initiatives, such as the one presented by Mrs. Bulc today, are crucial for the success of the transition embodied in the Green Deal. The recent announcement by the Japanese Prime Minister Suga of climate neutrality by 2050 as a target for Japan has stressed the importance of innovation and role of technologies. Now, these are the areas where there is great scope for further expanding cooperation with Japan as a strategic partner to the EU. For example, on the energy front, on clean hydrogen, on storage, on renewables, and on the use of digital for ICT and for creation of green, smart cities. And our cooperation is open to businesses. It relies on coordinated efforts in terms of scientific research, and it fosters dialogue with local governments who are actually very often in the lead on the climate action front, and also with Japanese civil society. I'm looking forward to a discussion today which will represent and probably then promote and suggest further steps into that joint direction. I wish you a fruitful exchange and good results for our event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, for sharing these important words and stressing out the importance of sustainability as well as collaboration. Before we dive into the visions, let me encourage you participants to ask questions. Feel free to submit them in a question and answer box, and we will post the selected questions during the discussion session. This forum is being recorded, and registered participants will be given a link to access the recorded video. So now we are ready to start with the presentations, and it is my honor to welcome Mr. Koichi Akaishi, who will talk about Japanese vision on super smart society, or so-called Society 5.0. Mr. Akaishi is the Vice Minister for Innovation Policy of the Cabinet Secretariat of the Government of Japan. He had several leadership positions before attaining his current position. For example, Mr. Akaishi was the Director General for Science, Technology, and Innovation in the Cabinet Office. Mr. Akaishi, it is an honor to have you here, and we're excited to learn from you about Society 5.0. Please.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Vesna. My name is Koichi Akaishi, and I'm in charge of overall innovation policy in the Cabinet Office. Before going into detail, I have to say that now the Japanese government have decided to make our country carbon neutral before 2050, and we are now joining the European Union's target. So let's cooperate very closely. This is my first message. Now, I just would like to talk a little bit about the concept of Society 5.0. As Ambassador Petrich-san has suggested, we are facing a lot of problems from climate change to getting older society, shrinking people, pollution, and everything like that. And in order to deal with these problems, we think it is very important to make most of the digital technology. But we think that this digital technology should not be applied only to industry, but also to whole society. And also we think that data-driven society is too dry, and we think it is very important to make human in the middle. So our Society 5.0 concept is a human-centric society, which is a kind of a mixture of cyber and physical space. Now, we have proposed this concept about 5 years ago, and from that time on, we've been trying very hard to make a lot of projects, from a mobility project, a disaster prevention project, or agriculture project, or health control project, or everything like that. And in the meantime, it is very interesting that the global system, global world, society itself is seriously thinking about the importance of a sustainable development goal. And we think this sustainable development goal of the United Nations is exactly what we are looking at, or we are looking forward to. So we think that similarity of the SDGs and Society 5.0 is very deep. Now, I have made a presentation in Slovenia last November, before COVID-19. We made this presentation of Society 5.0 in Ljubljana. And after that presentation, the situation surrounding Society 5.0 have changed dramatically, not only from a political point of view, but a social point of view, economic point of view, natural point of view, industrial point of view, and finally, most importantly, the COVID-19. So I would like to point out 5 important changes after I have presented my Society 5.0 in Ljubljana. One important change is, of course, impact of COVID-19. Second important change is the development of digital policy. Third important change for us is a new target regarding CO2 emission towards 2050. And fourth important change is more and more devastating natural disaster, including typhoon. And fifth is rather good news. Important development in smart city area is going on. First, I would like to talk a little bit about COVID-19. Well, I understand there are a lot of talk about great reset in terms of the post-corona. So we have reviewed our post-corona social structure and tried to find out if there would be any important change in the Society 5.0. And our finding has been that in order to adapt to post-corona world, the importance of Society 5.0 is rather increasing. So when you look at this picture, these are the some projects done within the Society 5.0. On the left upper side, online medical care. This is also already involved in the Society 5.0 project, but as you can easily understand, it is becoming more and more important when it is the COVID-19 world. And on the left downside, remote work. As you can understand that so many people are now under the remote work situation. And in order to do the remote work, the basic infrastructure of the Society 5.0 is clearly necessary. And also, I would like to talk a little bit about the human resources. On the right downside, there is some picture of the agriculture area. And as you can easily understand, the foreign people cannot move around the world at this moment. And in Japan, especially in the agricultural area, not foreign people cannot help Japanese agricultural area. So we thought we were fortunate that we were doing a lot about Society 5.0 in agriculture area, so-called Smart Agricultural Project. This project is a kind of robotics agriculture project, which would not, how can I say, human labor, which would to decrease the human labor. So even though we couldn't have a lot of foreign workers in Japan during the COVID-19, we don't have any problems in terms of the supply of agriculture because of the smart agriculture project under Society 5.0. And on the other hand, I just have to point out that in order to cope with COVID-19, the current stage or current situation of the Society 5.0 is not up to the task yet. For example, national ID. In Japan, we have a so-called My Number card system, but the low penetration rate of this My Number card put Japanese government in a very difficult situation. For example, when trying to allocate investment fund to household, we have invested about €1,000 for every household, but it took a lot of time and a lot of labor. And also a lack of interoperability among hospitals and relevant institutions make it difficult for us to collect appropriate real-time data for COVID-19. So now we are trying to come up with some solution in order to strengthen the implementation phase of Society 5.0. Well, next page, please. The second very important thing is about second だったっけな? The third important thing is sorry. I would like to point out the importance of the how can I say disaster prevention, as I told you. These days, disaster is becoming more and more severe these days. So again, we think it is becoming more important to implement the Society 5.0 in terms of the disaster management. This is a structure of our disaster management system. We are trying to make some platform which would collect all the data regarding the disaster situation and disaster response and damage situation. And to collect data, we set up a platform for this data, for collecting this data, and try to mash up some information so that we can supply some important data for ministries or prefectures, municipal governments, or some other peoples. So this is one example which we think it is very important to survive this very severe world, especially in terms of the disaster. Can you go 3 page, please? And when it comes to the, あれこれスマートシティになっちゃった。あ、本当？あ、ちょっと待って、これ言うの忘れちゃったな。サステナビリティでしょ？ちょっと待ってね。It's okay. Okay, and another one important pillar is the development of a smart city. I think that in the world, there are a lot of movement in the smart city regarding the smart city. Especially, we understand that under the G20, there are the Global Smart City Alliance was established last year, and they are working very actively in order to make an interoperability among global smart cities. Well, in Japan, we are also trying very hard to make a good smart cities, something like eco-cities or transit-oriented development cities or building disaster-resilient cities. And in order to make these smart cities, we think the platform is again also very, very important. So in this picture, at the center, there is a kind of a platform. And we have made a smart city reference architecture this March. And from that time on, we are encouraging all the Japanese municipal governments which trying to become smart cities to be complied with this smart city reference architecture, so that we can cooperate the data, and also we can cooperate some solution architecture. So this is the smart city part, and we would like to cooperate with the foreign economies, so that we can also make an interoperability between us and also some foreign cities. And then next is digital. I have to touch upon some drastical change in terms of the digital policy. Well, there had been power change in Japanese administration from Prime Minister Abe to Prime Minister Suga. And Mr. Suga is very much keen to have the digital, how can I say, friendly society. So he set up IT strategy headquarters, and no, he set up an e-government ministers meeting under IT strategy headquarters. And we are now implementing 3 working groups. One is individual number system working group. This is ID number working group. And the second is digital transformation working group, which is focusing on the setting up the digital agency. And third is, I think it is most important, is task force for data strategy. And this is the basic data strategy task force, which would contribute to the construction of a society 5.0. And the concept of a data strategy is something like that. We have learned a lot from European data strategy, but at this moment we are coming up with our own data strategy. We think that 5 pillars is very important. One is a base registry, including the ID number and the company numbers or something like that. This is the basic registries or information or data in order for us to make a society 5.0. And the second important pillar is rule, something like a trust service, authentication of provider and data, or quality assurance of quality of data. These are also very important in order for us to make a trustworthy society 5.0. And third pillar is the platform and tools. The most important thing for this digital society is to ensure interoperability. So we have to make some reference model, and we have to make a core vocabularies, infrastructure. And we have to make a multi-layer interoperability, including API openness or sharing of the data catalog. And fourth is environment, data sharing environment. In this area, we are now trying to make a data trust bank and also a data trading market. It's a very new trial. I think some other economies are trying to make a data trading market. And we want to cooperate with some other economies which are trying to make this kind of data environment. And the fifth very important pillar is infrastructure. We are focusing on making the advanced network, not only optical fiber, but 5G and also towards 6G. And in this area, the national security is becoming more and more important. So we want to cooperate with European Union in terms of these areas. Finally, we are not writing down the importance of the international, no, there is a word, international collaboration. Finally, international collaboration. This is very important. In Japan, Prime Minister Abe advocated data free flow with trust. And in terms of this data free flow, we think there are 5 important pillars. One is privacy, second is security, third is trust, fourth is infrastructure, and fifth is something like trade, which we have done with the EU, or we have done with the UK in terms of the data transfer. So these are the recent change of the Society 5.0. And finally, I would like to say that after the COVID-19, we are becoming more and more sure that we have to strengthen the Society 5.0, and we have to hasten the implementation of Society 5.0. And we hope we would be able to cooperate with the Slovenia and the European Union to make this Society 5.0 more globally. Thank you.
Mr. Akaishi, thank you for this great introduction to Society 5.0 and providing us this information on concrete initiatives that Japan is now establishing, which indeed have an enormous potential for us, providing improvements and solutions in various areas, which you also presented. Our next speaker I would like to invite is Mr. Pavel Missiga, the head of Circular Economy and Bio-Based Systems Unit in the Directorate General for Research and Innovation, European Commission. In European Commission, Mr. Missiga led teams working on sustainable production and consumption, resource efficiency, circular economy, and eco-innovation policies. For the next 10 minutes, we will have the pleasure of hearing from Mr. Missiga about how circular economy will help to shape sustainable Europe. Mr. Missiga, please.
Thank you very much. Konnichiwa to our colleagues in Japan, and good morning to colleagues in Europe. I am really honored that I can be with you today, and I can present what the European Union is doing in the field of circular economy. I have to say that my approach will be more focused than what Vice Minister Akaishi presented just a few minutes ago. That presentation was impressive with its integrative approach, very high level, holistic approach. I would say that we also have such strategies and policies at European Union, mostly represented by recent policies, New Generation Europe and the Green Deal, that are also holistic, integrative. What I will speak about is one element, but still it is very important system, the use of materials in European economy. So I would say that I go in my focus one level below, focusing on one very important area, and I will try to show what European Union is doing and planning to do. I will now I will share my presentation. I hope you can excuse me, you can see it. Yes, is it okay? Very good. So transition to circular economy in Europe. Why we want to do it? How can I move my slides now? On this slide, you can see the history of economic development and environmental situation at global level. So sometimes in mid of last century, the global economy started to accelerate in unprecedented rate in many aspects, whether it is GDP, whether it is energy use, consumption of different materials, intensity and growth in certain sectors like transportation, telecommunication, tourism, etc. So you can see this incredible increase, and this had its price. So on the right side of the slide, you can see the environmental impact of this economic growth, and again, this is unprecedented, and it reaches now the magnitude, such magnitude that we are asking the question whether the terrestrial ecosystem can bear such impacts and such intensity of economic activities. And in Europe, what is quite popular is the theory of planetary boundaries. It is the concept that developed by the Stockholm Resilience Institute that basically summarizes the global environmental impacts and compares it to the carrying capacity of planetary ecosystems. And we see that humanity as a whole is approaching the planetary boundaries, or in other words, the limits of sustainability. And in some cases, it already it has crossed these boundaries when it comes to climate change, but also biodiversity and ecosystem integrity, but also in other parameters, land system changes, the biochemical flows, especially on phosphorus and nitrogen. So these are areas where we have to do something about that. And what is the objective is actually to decouple economic growth and, more importantly, the well-being of people from resource use and especially environmental impacts that are caused by this intensive resource use. So this is our objective. We simply understand that we cannot continue like that with ever growing use of resources, and we have to find solution how we can achieve this decoupling. And one example of this decoupling approach is the climate policy of the European Union. So we are very pleased that the Japanese joined Europe in setting objective of carbon neutrality by 2050. We have recently discussed at political level the intermediate target for 2030. So it seems that the consensus is around minus 55%. So here you can see the blue line is growth of GDP in Europe, and you can see how we want to decouple carbon emissions with from this economic growth, and within few decades to achieve our absolute objective of carbon neutrality. But carbon is, as I said, is just one impact, and when we look at what is the driver of many impacts, be it carbon emissions, but also pollution of many kinds, it is actually the material use in the economy, from extracting to processing to consumption. And this is why, based on this understanding, this is why the Commission and our President, it was one of the first announcements after she was elected as a president, she came out with the idea of the European Green Deal. So this is very holistic approach that deals with climate, with energy systems, mobility systems, renovation of building stock, etc. But also look at pollution, at agriculture, food systems, etc. Very important element is also fair regional economic development, so that we don't create disparities between European regions. And one element, one pillar of this Green Deal policy is circular economy, exactly because of this recognition of importance of material economy for all these other elements. So what we want to achieve is on the left side of this picture. This is a picture well known in Europe. This was produced by quite influential Ellen MacArthur Foundation that is focusing on promoting circular economy concepts. So this is the ideal situation when we use materials in our economy in such way through this circular uses that materials stay in the economic system as much as possible, and also we maintain value of those materials. So it is both environmental and economic concept, and it has two sides. On the right side, the technical materials, minerals, metals, fossil-based materials, but very importantly on the left side of this picture, bio-based materials. So this biological side of circular economy is very often neglected, but it is equally important. But what is reality? You can see the reality on the right side of the picture. This is the flow of materials through European economy. We use about 8 gigatons of materials of different kinds, and this amount already is unsustainable. If all regions consume the same level of materials, we would need 1.5, maybe 2 planets to supply that. So this is the first problem. But from circular economy point of view, the problem is that large parts of economy is still linear. You see the straight line from extraction through production to consumption to waste, actually. We build a lot of material stocks in our buildings and all the durable materials that we use. But you see at the bottom of the picture a small loop. So this is what we have currently, a circular economy. About 10% of materials used in Europe are circulating. So this is still circular economy, is still at the beginning, and we can consider it as a niche rather than the mainstream. So this is what we need to very quickly change the system and enlarge that loop so that majority of materials will circulate. Now, the Circular Economy Action Plan, how we approach it. So first of all, we look at products, at design, but the whole product policy framework will be reviewed with significant stimuli in all stages to ensure circularity. Circularity cannot be achieved by individual firms. What is needed that the whole value chains have to become circular. So we need to intervene in all stages of life cycle of products, from design to production to consumption, and then how we deal with end-of-life products. The policy is focusing on the key value chains, where it was analyzed that these value chains are responsible for majority of impact. So we have to address them, including electronics and ICT, batteries, vehicles, buildings and construction material, packaging, plastics, textiles, etc. We are going to revamp the whole waste legislation system to enable and stimulate recycling and use of secondary materials. What is important that this agenda has also a social dimension. So we look at how we can create jobs and help with education and skill buildings, how we can help regions to use circular economy approach for regeneration and development. We also see importance of investment in this and how we can use economic instruments. So, for example, we are working on a taxonomy for sustainable financing. And the last element is that we would like to promote circular economic concept at global level and help partners around the world to adopt similar policy and implement them. So on next slide, the question is how this fundamental reform, how it can be achieved. It is not easy to change systems that have been developing for decades or centuries, and suddenly we need to change them and reform them in a very short time. This is what is needed, but it is very difficult. There is a lot of inertia in economic systems. So we know that we have to innovate across the whole economic system. We have to change our markets, how companies behave, how they collaborate, how they compete. We have to change social norms in terms of how consumers consume products and what they do with them, what they demand from producers, and how they use them. So this is fundamental change and essentially innovation agenda, but not only in terms of technology. We have to change business models. We have to change governance. We have to change social norms. So we need technological innovation, but also business innovation, governance, and social innovation. And to have this innovation appear, we have to provide strong incentives, and we have to allow a lot of experimentation and support this experimentation along the whole life cycle of innovation, from early ideas, testing, experimentation to demonstration, flagships, first market application, and market replication. Because we know that usual time for material innovation to reach the market is 20 years, and we don't have time of 20 years. We have to absolutely accelerate. So how this thinking influences the research and innovation policy and instruments. We have been supporting through European research and innovation programs like the current Horizon 2020. This was the program in the period of 2014 and 2020. So we have already invested more than 2 billion euro, which corresponds roughly to 250 billion of Japanese yen, into research projects focused on circular economy. We also created and tested investment instruments. For example, last year we established a circular bioeconomy investment fund with about 300 million euro as an initial capital, but we hope to bring more private capital to it, which is not very big fund, but this is a model for future instruments. This is a little bit less than 40 billion Japanese yens that we that we are now investing into circular projects very close to market or already in the market. But we plan more on the new research and innovation program in the period 2021 and 2027. On this slide, you can see the structure. So the program will continue to support excellent research. This is the pillar 1. And also we will have a generic new instruments for support of innovation and bringing innovation. This is the 3rd pillar. What I want to focus on is the pillar 2 in the middle, which is a thematic instrument. We understand and we have to give directionality to the research to achieve this quick development and adoption of innovation. And you can see the structure of this thematic pillar. So we will deal with health, with creative innovation, civil security and society, including disaster prevention and management, digital industry and space, climate, energy and mobility, and the last one is quite broad. It's about natural resources, food systems, bioeconomy, agriculture, and all environmental issues. So this is the element where I work, but circular economy is actually relevant for several of these thematic clusters, especially for industrial cluster, digital industry and space, but also for the one on natural resources, and specifically in the cluster, thematic cluster on natural resources. What we are planning, we expect that we will again invest at least as much as we did in the past. So we estimate that we will be able to invest some 2-3 billions, which corresponds to 250 or less than 400 billion of Japanese yens. In the first stage in the work program 2021-2022, which we are now developing, we are planning a budget that is approximately 75 billion of Japanese yen. We will do research action, so early research, but we want to focus also much more on innovation action. So we want to do much more experimentations, demonstration, and first market applications. For example, large-scale demonstration of systemic solutions at regional scale. We have already initiatives on our kind of drawing boards in quite developed plans for circular bio-based Europe partnership with industry. This is 1 billion euro or 125 billion yens initiative, which we invest into new bio-based industry installation like biorefineries. There is a plan for industrial symbiosis hubs, which is essentially to support research, innovation, collaboration in industrial districts to ensure that there are circular interaction between different industries and companies. And Circular Cities and Regions Initiative, which is initiative to support local and regional governments and other stakeholders to develop projects of regional size and focusing on those value chains that have regional dimension, which is majority, in fact, of use of materials. So these are very concrete initiatives. Will be supported by a number of calls for research and innovation projects. So we expect tens to hundreds projects basically to be implemented within these schemes. But we also plan investment based on our experience from Horizon 2020. There is an investment instrument that is planned at European level, which is called InvestEU. And this has quite large innovation and infrastructure windows. It is estimated to some around 10 billion euro that will be available for investment. And within these investment instruments, there will be generic as well as thematic financial instruments. So we are discussing the possibility to create a specific thematic investment instrument for circular economy. But also with colleagues in the European Investment Bank, we are discussing financial engineering approaches, how we can blend different type of funds, public funds at European level, public funds at national level, with private funds to actually radically increase the amount of funds or amount of investment going into circular economy, so that those companies and value chain collaborations that are needed for transition, they are fueled by the capital, both from public and private sources. So with this, I would like to demonstrate that the plans and visions are supported by very specific actions that are planned, both in the research area. There are many other activities planned in the policy areas, as I mentioned, legislation review and other policies, incentives at European level, at national level. There are several member states that are very active. Slovenia is one of those. Slovenia is pioneer, and they have their national initiatives, very interesting and initiative that will have possibly even larger impact than activities at the European level. So with this, I hope that I show that there will be many opportunities for European stakeholders, but also at international level. And what we would like to see is that Japanese institution, government, research establishment, but also companies and citizens, that we somehow find a way to collaborate. And I believe that Horizon Europe is one platform, one possible platform when we can find a way to collaborate, learn from each other, and together in this synergy to increase the impact of our effort. So thank you very much for your attention. Arigato gozaimasu. And I am happy to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Missiga. For sure, we will have questions, and thank you for these great presentations. First, on the environmental pressures of our unsustainable activities, and then on circular economy as a solution to this. So it's really thrilling to hear about the determination of the European Union to seriously embrace the circular economy, which is such a crucial part to achieve sustainable society. The next speaker I would like to welcome is Mrs. Violeta Bulc, who, based on technological, societal, environmental, and other multidimensional perspectives, envisions our future society, which she calls Ecocivilization. Mrs. Violeta Bulc is a former European Commissioner for Transport and a former Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Slovenia. She now shares her experience and wisdom in consultations with presidents, CEOs, and board members, and we are happy to have her here to share her wisdom with us as well. Dear Mrs. Violeta Bulc, please.
Thank you very much, and Your Excellencies, my dear colleagues, and everyone who found time to join us on this very important discussion. I'm very honored to be part of it, and I just hope that through my story and through sharing my concepts, I will be able to add a little bit in the expansion of our thoughts and space within which new ideas can emerge. Allow me to share with you some of my slides that I prepared for today's event. Couple of key points on which I base my point of view. First of all these incredible efforts for climate neutral behavior cannot be really successful within the existing concepts of thinking within the existing organizational structures and within the existing tools. So my first invitation is that we continue to strive together to expand this space and to continue to develop new tools. Another point that I'd like to make is that it's basically my invitation to all of you to take a look at the Society 5.0, circular economy, and all these incredible new concepts that are emerging through the lenses of potentially new civilizational paradigm. I mean, sometimes it's hard to believe that we could potentially be part of something like that. But if you take the last 20,000 years in perspective, you will see that these changes have been happening. And I feel, based on many indicators from the society, that we might be at this tipping point where we will have a chance to decide in which direction we will lead our society and the planet as a whole. So the third message that I'd like to put forward before I enter into the concepts of eco-civilization is that to become planet and nature neutral society, much more than technologies will be needed, much more than investments will be needed, much more than new governance models will be needed. We would need something that will pull together the entire population of this planet. And of course, I could not even dare to think that I can provide by myself such a vision, but I do hope that I will at least awaken in one of you who are today here a thought that might lead us in the future to make this bridge. We are so used to hearing about the concepts of technological revolutions. Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. And all the time we're hearing technology, technology, technology. Yes, we do put people here and there in the middle, and that's such a profound model that Society 5.0 is offering, because people are in the middle, but they are still completely trapped in the technological solutions. Do you think that this is the only way forward? What we can learn from the previous civilizations is that at one point, there comes something that becomes more important than the key value driver of the current situation. That doesn't mean that the driver is completely forgotten or dismissed, but something new and fresh starts emerging, and that's what really causes the civilizational spill. I dare to propose that we are at that moment. What will be this new turning point? What are people really calling for? Where are our apprehensions coming from? When you talk to people on the street, to your family members, to your co-workers, what are we really aiming for? Is it really yet another technological gadget? Or is maybe a more profound life-related issue? So I dare to invite you into this kind of thinking. And that's where I position Ecocivilization as the next paradigm that can embrace all our efforts for planet neutrality societies, but at the same time tries to take a look at how we are organized, how we correlate to each other, what are our priorities, and what is the meaning of our existence in slightly different manner. I played around with how the transformations of different political, economical, social systems have evolved. And it's interesting how little is needed that we fall from one to another, how very sensitive we need to be when we lead societies, because it is so easy to jump from one organizational or political structure to another. And where is in all of this then Ecocivilization? I was challenged, being a politician for the last 6 years, by the fact that so often we are really aiming at preservation of existing tools. We're fighting to preserve economical models. We're fighting to preserve our current lifestyles or benefits or structures, prices, all kinds of things, constantly trying to preserve something. But at the same time, we try to be very innovative, and we try to look for visions that could lead us forward. So in this sort of contradiction and in global trends that are appearing, I found an opportunity to propose maybe something different. And that different I call Ecocivilization, which I do believe is more than just a hope. It's more than just a dream, more than just you and I. It is possibly a ticket for our existence. And instead of putting the classical organizational structures forward, I ask myself, what is the essence of life? What is really worth preserving? And this is what really emerged. Beings, which is humans, animals, plants, even bacteria and viruses and blobs. Then societies within which we organize ourselves. Of course, we need a land that feeds us, where we stand, that we can stand on and coexist. And throughout our developments, we are building this incredible repository of consciousness, of common knowledge, of universal wisdom, that it's so important to also add into this cross-civilizational dimension, that we can start learning from each other, bringing continents together, but not only in this particular moment of time, but throughout the entire history of our development. And in the essence of everything are relationships. That's why I do believe that the next tipping element for the future of our society are relationships. And we are yet to discover a new physics which will help us and will go beyond the quantum physics and will help us to understand this essence of relationships, which we all feel, but nobody can really touch it, cannot put any mathematical formula on, but it's really the essence of our life and the way how things move forward. So this is the picture I'm offering you. And through that, I'm inviting everyone that we recognize this beautiful planet Earth as our incredible potential for eco zone in the broader galaxy. We're already competing for the dominance in space without even implementing a sustainable structures on the planet Earth. Why don't we come together, create on a UN level structures that are needed in order to really deliver sustainable living on this planet? And with that philosophy, we enter the space. And with that philosophy, we populate other planets. So with that in mind, it's really clear that the reason why I'm proposing this, the reason why this manifested and is seeking the dialogues throughout the entire, all over the world, is because the time is right. And because we need answers for the most pressing issues like pandemic, climate change, global coexistence, which are global issues. And because inner calls that are awakening in people are so much stronger and are calling for a new hope. And how? By starting to imagine together. Because when we imagine together, we create. And together we can then develop and deliver new civilizational paradigm by daring to dream beyond what we know today and allow ourselves that whatever we do, there is something that is calling beyond that border. And by hearing these really drums of nature, the drums that are awakening our senses, and we can broaden our perception and really invest in humans. Let's not try to develop new technological beings when we are so beautiful, but we are not really expanding our capacities. We constantly try to add technological dimension instead of expanding who we really are. This is by far the most sophisticated artificial intelligence, artificial in quotes, but it's not used in its capacity. And finally, what is the simple proposition? Well, 5 core entities that you see in front of you as the basis for new organizational structures. Imagine that this is the structure of corporation, that this is a structure of a country. 3 major goals that I already mentioned, and of course, relationships as a major driving force. Then we can dream about deliverables, that we can actually move from this egocentric society, which was necessary for us to establish individual energy, to eco-society, which also holds the global awareness, from competition to collaboration, from hierarchies and chains to networks, from profits to shared values, from ownership to responsible use, crematism to care. And through that, I'm inviting you to join this journey, to join debates. I don't have the answers, but we do. So more we debate with each other, more we engage with each other, more we collaborate, clearer will be this picture of potentially even new civilizational paradigm. I've been leading many of the discussions. Incredible thoughts and manifestations are already emerging. So I do feel that there is something in the air. I hope that through today's session, we'll be able to join also on a conceptual level and see how Society 5.0, circular economy, and the Ecocivilization can come together and support each other in bringing a well-being, not only to humans, but to the entire planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Violeta Bulc, for sharing with us your vision that takes into account who we want to be in this society and how we want to live, and to prioritize values that generate well-being for all. Now, last but not the least, I want to give a warm welcome to Professor Takeuchi, the President of Institute for Global Environmental Strategies and a project professor at the Institute for Future Initiatives at the University of Tokyo. Professor Takeuchi will present us a local and regional circulating and ecological sphere, a holistic strategy that roots sustainability in the local regions, yet the joint results could be felt on a much wider global sphere. We are glad to have you here, Professor.
Thank you, Vesna, for your kind introduction. I'm very pleased to organize this seminar, joined with the Republic of Slovenia, as well as the EU delegation. When I was a professor at the University of Tokyo, I was expertise in the field of landscape ecology and landscape planning. At that time, University of Ljubljana was my counterpart, and I had the opportunity to visit the beautiful country of the Slovenia twice. Not only the city, but also I could visit rural areas. And so this year, I also wanted to visit the Slovenia, but because of the COVID-19, we are obliged to cancel our visit. And therefore, in the very near future, I'm looking forward to visiting the Slovenia once again. Today, my talk is, as already explained, regional or local circulating and ecological sphere, which was proposed in the year 2018 when we established the fifth basic environment plan of the government of Japan. I will explain to you later on. I would like to start by explaining about the causes of the COVID-19 or other pandemics. The reason behind, we see there is an inappropriate relationship between the wildlife and human settlement, and inappropriate development caused by the agricultural development or urbanization. This is one of the reasons what we need to consider. The other reason is too rapid acceleration of the globalization and massive movement of people. And these causes are also common to the other global challenges like biodiversity loss, climate change, disasters, and therefore we need to take an integrated action to figure out the post-COVID-19 sustainability. We have various challenges: SDGs, Paris Agreement, biodiversity framework, and disaster risk reduction. These need to be integrated toward a new sustainable society in order to minimize our use of resources, both monetary and human. And also, we need to, in order to implement these challenges, how we could solve these challenges, local action is very important. In addition to these two aspects, we are now trying to consider how we could really transform our society towards sustainability in the post-COVID-19 era. This is a basic environment plan where I served as a chair of the Central Environment Council of the government Japan. We try to introduce the concept of SDGs as well as the planetary boundaries and try to expand the concept of the basic environment plan to be an integrated approach, including the environmental aspect, economic aspect, and social aspect, and to try to make integrated improvement possible. In order to materialize these ideas, we propose the concept of a regional circulating and ecological sphere. Of course, we need to consider about the different scales. If you talk about material circulation, for example, if you talk about the rare metals, it is not appropriate to circulate on the community level. It needs to be circulated in the regional scale. However, if you consider about the treatment of the garbage, regional scale, of course, inappropriate, and community scale need to be further used for the recycling of the resources and materials. So there are several scales, and we try to expand this idea to not only to the resource circulation, but also to the decarbonized society as well as the society in harmony with nature. This is a concrete idea of establishing a circulating and ecological sphere. First started by the society in harmony with nature, try to create a harmonious coexistence between the rural areas and urban areas. And based on this idea, we also consider about a safe and secure community by introducing of ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction or ecosystem-based adaptation against climate change and also other types of disasters. And on that, we try to pursue the society where we can circulate our resources. So 3 R's we call: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And then on the top, we will consider about the decarbonized society by improving of the energy efficiency as well as the introduction of the various renewable energy sources. But we are not willing to live in the closed society. We are willing to live in the globalized society, and we could exchange of people, exchange of information, and exchange of technology with other part of the world. This is the basic ideas. And these are the closely related with the various UN challenges as well as the various SDGs goals and targets. And based on that, we also need to further integrate the human, natural, and social capitals. And we also need to consider about the technological innovation as well as the social system innovation. And here, we are also emphasizing the importance of lifestyle innovation. Not just ask to the government, not just ask to the private sectors, but also we need to ask our lifestyle. Either we could really change our systems and so that we could meet the global challenges. Very recently, I just summarized a 1.5 degree lifestyles, which aims to innovate our lifestyles in order to meet the challenges of very ambitious 1.5 degree proposed by the IPCC. And this is a very important challenges for us to stabilize our climate, which will minimize our impact as well as the impact to the other type of ecosystems. In order to create this regional or local circulating ecological sphere, we also need to invite the various different stakeholders on the different scales. Global scale stakeholders, national scale stakeholders, local scale stakeholders. We also need to invite different stakeholders. But here I would like to emphasize, we are living in the globalized society. So global level partnership is also need to be combined with the local level partnerships. So nested structure is very important in our society. And this shows the importance of the governance based on the nested structure. And this is a clear images of the local level circulating and ecological sphere by trying to combining of the rural areas with urban areas. And from the rural areas, urban people can enjoy the various ecosystem services, goods and services, as well as the places for recreation and other precious values of natural capitals. While the urban dwellers can provide the human resources as well as the monetary resources to the rural area, so that this area could be kind of the circulating and ecological sphere, which contribute to the revitalization of decentralized but yet connected local society. So we are trying to implement this idea not only in the various parts of Japan, but also we are trying to collaborate with our partners to develop this idea in other parts of the world. Particularly, we are now trying to discuss with our partners in Southeast Asia how this idea could be applied to their cities and rural areas. The important thing is how we could really appreciate the local conditions and the local people's willingness try to change our society. And therefore, this is just a model, and we need to be implemented by considering of different characteristics and different stakeholders. This is my last slide. We have the IGES has a Kita-Kyushu Urban Center where Vesna is working, and we are very pleased that we could expand this idea to the Kita-Kyushu. And this is an example of the city level bio-waste management systems, and these are local or community level activities need to be combined with the global challenges. And therefore, we have lots of things to do. And I'm very much looking forward to further discussing with you for the development of these ideas. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Professor Takeuchi, for immersing us into your vision. And I believe what you have just shared with us is not only a vision, but a recipe for creating a truly sustainable society, and something that is not only applicable for Japan, but I would say is universal. So now that we have heard about all 4 visions, it is time to move on some short discussion session. So welcome all to the discussion session. We received many questions from the participants, and thank you very much. I would like to start opening the session with one common question. Now, countries have a desire for the affluence, for economic growth. And the way we are pursuing this economic growth is by encouraging consumption, which is on the other hand a root of unsustainability. We are overexploiting natural resources and we are returning back what we no longer need in a form of waste and in a form of pollution. And as a matter of fact, also COVID-19 is a consequence of exploitation of wildlife. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic is a big financial burden resulting in a decline of national GDPs. How can we recover, but this time in a sustainable way? How can we do it differently this time?
Okay, let me try to start from a perspective of, again, of a message that the nature is sending us. This is not the first time that the world is going through pandemic. Every pandemic brought some new insights in the way how our society is organized, where are the weak points. And if we look back, and I studied former pandemics, and I went all the way back to the 14th century in Europe, where the Black Death was really causing a huge pandemic and lots of life were lost. And at that time, the density of consciousness changed. There was an important change in the awareness of people. People realized at that time, especially the poor people, that the nobles, the aristocracy are just humans. They die of a plague the same as the poor people do. And that was the sort of the initial energy that led later on to French Revolution and a completely new reorganization of at least the continental Europe. And of course that had severe consequences for in the centuries that followed for the way how Europe behaved globally. So yeah, pandemics are catastrophe in one hand, but on the other hand, they are an incredible opportunity to reevaluate the way how we deal with each other. We saw that very concretely that countries with strong public health systems are doing better than those that don't have these public systems in place. So that sent a strong message to be careful how we are developing our future health systems. Like European Union is now considering, and the debate has already started about health union in the future, which could make better.
So, Mrs. Woods, you believe that with the increase of consciousness and improving the health system, this would be the main
I think that this is the main message that we can learn from, and based on that, we can, of course, build more resilient systems and more inclusive systems and react faster.
Thank you very much. I would also now like to hear from Mr. Akaishi. What are his thoughts?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I think as long as Japan is concerned, we think it is very important to how can I say, make it as an opportunity from the COVID-19 disaster. We think that digitization is one of the area we actually felt that it is very important to promote. So we are going to invest a lot in terms of the digitization area, and we are going to change our system itself so that we can cope with the real digitalization. Another important area is sustainability, as we are discussing. So as we have already mentioned, we have decided to make Japan carbon neutral in 2050. And in order to do that, as you can also understand, we are going to make a tremendous amount of investment. So this is the second area. And third important thing is that all the humankind have recognized the importance of science, especially in terms of biotechnology at this moment. But not only biotechnologies, but all the other area, we definitely have to have our science advanced. So again, we have decided to invest in the basic science. Maybe European Union has all the same kind of thinking. Another important area is innovation. It is very important. Japanese people are not good at innovation, but when it becomes to the coronavirus, it seems a lot of startups companies are trying to make new technology so that we can cope with the coronavirus. So these four areas is a very important area for Japan so that we can continue to grow with keeping the sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this comprehensive answer. What about Professor Takeuchi? Do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you very much. And I would like to introduce our recent reports on how we could establish a sustainable society after the COVID-19. And this report emphasized the importance of taking the three-step approach: response, recovery, and redesign. And we call it as a triple R framework. And the important thing is that we are now in the stage of response, and we are moving toward the stage of recovery. But the more important thing is that even from now, we need to consider about redesign. For example, we are now thinking about how we could redesign the city structure or rural structure. And now, because of the development of IT technology, because of the COVID-19, many people started to move to the rural areas, and so that they could stay in safe while they could maintain their job in the remote areas. And this type of a new lifestyle could be combined with the establishment of the sustainable society by reducing the CO2 emissions, by minimizing of the waste, by introducing of a renewable energy sources so that we could minimize the use of the fossil fuels, which will meet the challenges of 2050 to be to make it as a carbon neutral society, both in Europe and in Japan. So these are the way of thinking. So what I would like to say is that not just to consider about the immediate action to recover from the COVID-19, but we also at the same time need to consider the long-term vision so that we could really combine the post-COVID-19 issues with the establishment of a sustainable society. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much, Professor. Mr. Missiga, can circular economy help with that?
Yes. Let me first tell you that in European Union, we are trying to use this crisis as a new opportunity. So there is a plan. There will be funds available for member states to support their economies and their societies to recover, and member states are asked to prepare the national plans for that. And I personally see this crisis as an opportunity to restructure our economy, because this economic slowdown actually made certain sectors kind of, face a problem, and we can see how we can actually stimulate those economic activities that are more sustainable. It was difficult to get rid or slow down certain activities that we consider non-sustainable, but the crisis did it. So we should use this opportunity. Of course, there is enormous space for IT and digital technologies to play more important role. We see it now in education, in many economic sectors. We can do much more with less when we use IT technologies. What I am concerned about is material efficiency, which is the objective of circular economy policy. And there we see opportunities, but also threats. I will give you one example. One strategic direction for circular economy is the use of bio-based materials. We know that about 60% of material needs of human society can be satisfied by bio-based materials that are inherently more environmentally friendly because they capture carbon from the atmosphere, and production processes that are based on enzymatic processes or biotechnology processes are usually much more energy material efficient. They produce less pollution, etc. So this is a future for us. We need to support bio-based industry, but in the crisis we saw that, for example, the price of crude oil was so low that some companies that produce, for example, bio-based plastics, they couldn't find market for the products because they could not compete with these oil prices. So this is just one example how, we have kind of conflicting forces and stimuli in this process. So we have to understand those opportunities and exploit them wherever we can, and where there are these powers and stimuli that actually prevent us, we have to address it. And I'm afraid that this analysis, we are still doing it. We still don't understand fully the potential. We are exploring it, and I hope we will be able to use it. And again, this exchange is important that we understand. And the other thing is this social aspect. There was a lot of solidarity in the society because people experience this existential threat and threat to health. They were afraid of their families, grandparents, etc. Afraid of impact of COVID crisis. So I think that we can use this social capital that we built during the crisis somehow to continue and use it, this capital, in also sustainability transition.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Unfortunately, this is not yet part of thinking of politicians how to use this, and this is the aspect that Mrs. Bulc mentioned. How we can.
Yeah.
How
there are
how we
many
can use
opportunities
this
that we can
intangible
learn from this.
capital to apply it in the future. Thank
So
you.
I have one question received from the participant that I would like to dedicate to Mr. Akaishi, because it is about the digitalization. How can we use digital transformation more efficiently to support sustainable development of the societies? Do you have an answer to provide to our participant?
Thank you very much for a very good and difficult question. Well, technically speaking, we think it is very important to, how can I say, make a platform for everything. Platform agriculture, platform education, platform for a municipal government system, or everything like that. If we can make appropriate platform, I think this would change dramatically all the system in society. Another important thing is that on the other hand, we have to take care of the problem or difficulty or risks of making digitization so much. So some kind of principle is very important. So that's why we are making a so-called AI principle. And we have agreed on a very basic AI principle in G20. And we are cooperating with the European Union in order to share the risk or share the notion of risk in terms of digitization. So again, coming back to the digitization, in order to maximize the importance of digitization, maybe platform is the key word. And we also have to think about the risk of digitization. So then something like a discipline or ethics would be maybe more important. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this great answer. Professor Takeuchi, so participants were asking how to encourage the local governments to be more sustainable. Now, your area of work, or this local regional circulating and ecological sphere, what are the first steps to establish this? What would be the advice to pursue this?
Yes, first I would like to say that local governments, for example, their sections are rather fragmented. In order to apply this type of the integrated approach, it is inappropriate. And so I think that the mayor's initiative to integrate it, rather fragmented activities separately discussed in the different sections need to be integrated. This is one thing. And the second one is that they need to collaborate with the various stakeholders, not just to discuss with the parliamentarians, but also they will need to discuss with the private sectors as well as the citizens, farmers, and students, and many other stakeholders. Particularly, it is important to include the voices from the youth, which is emphasized even in the discussion in New York when we talk about the high-level achievement of SDGs at the high-level political forum. So these are the issues. And also, you must recognize the individual characteristics of individual regions, not just to think simply, these are the resources, but you must find out the resources from local areas, not just natural resources, but also the human resources, as well as the social resources. And these sort of things could bring us the opportunity to create a unique type of circulating and ecological systems, which will be fully fulfill the requirements of the local people and to contribute to the enhancement of the human well-being on the local scale. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this valuable answer. So unfortunately, we have to bring our forum to the end. We had this wonderful discussion and wonderful presentations, and I want to thank again our panelists for sharing their visions with us, and also for their efforts in shaping our bright future. Dear participants, upon registering, we asked you a question. How do you imagine a truly sustainable society? And we received many great answers from you, and all of them are very valuable. We collected them, and you will be able to read them after we close this forum. Although today we talked about the visions of a sustainable future, we must not wait for the sustainable world to be brought to us. We all already have the power and ability to co-create it and live it starting today. Thank you very much for joining.
Much.
Thank you. Arigato.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hvala, arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you to IGES for technical support and to Vesna for excellent moderation. Great job.